Welcome to the Feast Life, where we empower you, the modern homeschool mom, to create a life and homeschool you love, one founded on faith, family, freedom, and fun. I'm your host, Julie Ross, creator of the award-winning homeschool curriculum, A Gentle Feast, and a certified Christian life coach. For more information on today's episode and to access my free gift for you, check out thefeastlife.me. Charlotte Mason once said, "Life should be all living, not a mere tedious passing of time." So on this show, we seek to savor the feast of life. Girl, grab your favorite beverage and pull up a chair. You are welcome at this table. Have you ever laid in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if you're doing enough for your kids, if you're covering the right subjects, hitting the right milestones, holding it all together? If you've ever felt like the entire weight of your homeschool rests squarely on your shoulders, you're not alone. But here's the truth that could set you free. You were never meant to carry it all. In this soul-soothing episode of The Feast Life, we explore what it really means to homeschool with divine support. Drawing from the wisdom of Charlotte Mason and years of my own experience in the trenches, I'm sharing how to stop striving, start trusting, and recognize the unseen help that's available to you every single day. This is your permission slip to breathe, to rest, and to remember. You're not alone in this beautiful, messy, sacred calling. Let's dive into today's episode.
So today we're going to be talking about...
Have you ever laid in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if you're doing enough for your kids? If you're covering the right subjects, hitting the right milestones, holding it all together. I want you
to sit with this question.
If you've ever felt like the entire weight of your homeschool rests squarely on your shoulders, you're not alone.
Truth.
But here's the truth that could set you free. You were never meant to carry it all.
And you're like, Joey, there's no one here.
Episode of the
There's nobody
Life, we
helping me. What are you talking about?
What it really means to homeschool with divine support.
Are infinitely
drawing from the wisdom of Charlotte Mason and years of my own experience in the trenches, I'm sharing how to stop striving, start trusting, and recognize the unseen help that's available to you every single day. This is your permission slip to breathe, to rest, and to remember.
And
You're not alone in this beautiful, messy,
instead of trusting it.
calling.
We're going to learn today, hopefully.
Let's dive into today's episode.
To release just a little bit of that and let some of that go. All right, so Charlotte Mason talks about this concept of the divine helper, the Holy Spirit, if you will, right? So she says that every subject is from God. God imparts knowledge, not us. It's not coming from us, thank goodness. And she says, I won't read through this whole thing, but some of the things I want to point out is that the actions that we take are either inviting the cooperation of the divine helper, or the actions that we're taking are excluding his illuminating presence from our schoolroom. So we can actually be resisting and pushing away the help that is available to us. And in here, she talks about even in grammar. So she's not just talking about like in our Bible lessons or things like that. She's saying even in grammar, which is like one of those subjects that, for me anyway, anybody else, not my favorite. But even there, we see God. We see that there is an order and that there is a truth and there is a logic to grammar, right? And that there is an order and truth to our God. But he also is the one teaching and helping our children, even in that subject, which is amazing. And so this is really important. The contrary is equally true. So we can work in cooperation with the divine teacher. Such teaching as enwraps a child's mind in folds of many words that his thoughts is unable to penetrate, which gives him rules and definitions and tables in lieu of ideas. This teaching, which excludes and renders impossible the divine cooperation. So she's saying a whole bunch of talking from us, a whole bunch of rules, definitions, things that kids need to memorize, instead of giving them ideas, is excluding this cooperation. So let's dive in a little bit, and hopefully it'll make it a little bit clear of how we can actually be resisting this divine work that God wants to do in our kids. So how can we be hindering it? So first is stuffing our kids with facts. having them memorize a bunch of information, trying to get in as much as we can. And again, that often comes from this fear, right? That we have to keep up and we have to do all these things. And here's the things you need to know. And we need to know them like yesterday. And so we got to go, we got to know this stuff, right? But that's not how our kids' minds grow. Our kids' minds, souls, bodies, whole people grow on ideas. And so she says, but in the end, we'll discover that the child has only taken into his being those ideas that have fed his life. Everything else is thrown away, or even worse, becomes like dust that clogs the system and injures the vital process. So she's saying our kids are taking in like mind food all the time. That's what these ideas are. Ideas are life-giving. They grow. Our kids are going to take the ideas that they need, just like their bodies, right? Take the food that they need, the nutrients that they need, and they get rid of the rest. I won't go in the whole digestive process, but it's like similar metaphor, so you can picture it, right? But when we are feeding our kids with facts, it's like feeding them sawdust. She says it's like a scarecrow. They can look puffed up with knowledge, like they might know all, be able to recite this stuff and look like they know all this stuff. But in the end, it's just sawdust. It's not life-giving. It's not something that's going to grow them as people. Okay. So this can actually injure the workings of their brain. Students become lazy, passive learners. Like, I'm just waiting for the teacher to tell me what's on the test and what's going to be important here. I'm not doing the hard work of myself and figuring out, like, how does this all work? I'm not trying to understand it. Just tell me what I need to know so I can memorize it for this test and I can forget it. That is causing a lot of damage and it makes passive learners. Okay, another way we may be hindering is by overscheduling. So in this Parents Review article, which the Parents Review was the magazine that Charlotte Mason edited, this article is called Imagination as a Powerful Factor in a Well-Balanced Mind. I love that title because imagination is important, but we think that's something that's frivolous, right? When you're learning a bunch of facts, there's not a whole lot of imagination happening, right? But in order for imagination to grow, it needs two things: solitude and independence. But that is something children very rarely have these days. We have overscheduled them. In the book, Dumbing Us Down, I quoted that yesterday too. John Taylor Gatto did some of these calculations. So these are for school children, but it also applies to us. So out of the 168 hours in a week, my students sleep about 56 of them. That leaves 112 hours out of which to fashion a self. According to recent reports, children watch 55 hours of television a week. So he's not even calculating cell phones, so I can't even imagine what that is now. So that only leaves 57 hours a week in which to grow up. My children attend school 30 hours a week, use about 8 hours getting ready for and traveling to and from school, and spend about an average of 7 hours a week on homework. That's 45 hours. During that time, they are under constant surveillance. They have no private time or private space and are disciplined if they try to assert individuality of their own time and space. So that leaves them 12 hours a week out of which to create a unique consciousness. Of course, they do eat too, and that does take some time. Not much because they've lost the tradition of family dinner, but if we allot 3 hours a week for meals, that leaves a child 9 hours of private time. So there are not that many hours that we're giving our children, especially with all the distractions and things. And in this article, I wanted to read you a quote from it that I think is just so powerful and explains it better. Okay. So, in order for your children to grow, to be nourished, for their minds to become these whole persons that we talked about, children must have solitude and independence. Nursery children come off fairly well in these respects. They get time where they can wander and dream alone in the garden, but this happy state often ends when schoolroom life begins. Lessons, walk, lessons again, always in company, always something that must be done now. Miss Mason devised the timetables which cover such reasonable hours as to leave time for this solitude. But parents are often very culpable in thinking that tango, how many of your kids take tango lessons? That cracks me up. But the point there is talking about thinking that tango or some other new thing must be learned as well. And the much needed time for solitude is used for plans which necessitate hurried journeys, always in the company of a responsible person who feels it's their duty to talk in an instructive way. And the thinking time, the growing time, the time in which the mind is to find food is diminished, and the child becomes restless, tiresome, irritable, disobedient. Everything that a child who is reputed to be difficult can be. The parents marvel and say, but we're giving him the best education that can be procured. We are neglecting no opportunities. Kind, generous parents, you are giving your child every opportunity but one, and that is self-development. By your generous care, you are safeguarding him from ever using his own mind or ever relying on himself in any way. The child who at first found interference irksome later depends upon it, that he is unable to work without constant prodding. I believe this is the prime reason of the oft-repented lament of teachers and professors. Little ones are so eager. Children are less keen. Adults are dull and lethargic. Not a very pleasant view. Okay, so even as homeschoolers, even if we're following Charlotte Mason's timetables and using short lessons and getting our lessons done by 1 o'clock or 12 or whatever you do at your house, we can still feel the temptation to fill up our schedules with so much other stuff that our kids or devices or all the other distractions we have that Charlotte Mason didn't have, that our children don't have time to just think, just to be alone with their thoughts and to be bored. And they always have to have us prodding, giving them information, telling them what to do because they have become dependent on that. And so, in order for this style of education, in order to partner with the Holy Spirit and have this divine cooperation, we have to have margin in our lives. We have to have time not just for our kids, but for ourselves so that we can think and process as well. Okay, another way that we can hinder is by lecturing and questioning. Charlotte Mason said, to be poured into a bucket is not exhilarating to any soul. Neither is it exhilarating to have every difficulty explained to weariness, or to have the explanation teased out of one by many questions. Anybody, that was your school experience, right? Your teachers explain things to death sometimes. You're like, I get the point. Stop talking. Or you were just asked questions after questions, and it becomes so tiresome and irritable, right? I did as a child. No one wants to learn that way. Okay. It's like preparing a beautiful feast, a beautiful meal, and your kid sits down, and every bite you go, okay, now we're going to have a bite of the sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes come from farms and grow inside the ground, and they are root vegetables. And the Native Americans, blah, 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 blah. They're like, just give me the food. I'm hungry. I want to learn. And then we're spending all this time discussing it. Or I'm going to give you this bite of sweet potatoes. You're really going to love it. It's going to be really good. Like, we have to convince them to eat the sweet potato before they do. But they're like, I'm just hungry. Let me at it. Or they take a bite and then we feel the need. Now, did you enjoy that? What did that taste like? How would you compare that to the mashed potato? No one would enjoy that kind of meal, right? And if our education that we're providing for our children is this beautiful feast of all these rich subjects and experiences, the lecturing and the questioning get in the way and they kill that joy. We want our children to come to the food themselves, to be able to read the book, look at the artwork, do the experiment, look at the thing in nature, and then be able to have them express it for themselves and have their minds do that digestion on their own. So let me explain a little bit more what I mean by that. So how do we partner with the divine helper? So I just talked about ways that we can hinder it, ways we can interfere. Okay, let's talk about, okay, what do we do then? How does this actually work? Okay, so the first, like I said, prepare the feast and let your child come and eat. Charlotte Mason said, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Okay. Our job as teachers is to give our children the very best books, adventures, experiences, ideas, and let our children digest those to get, here's the feast, here's this beautiful meal, and step back a little bit. And again, if we're coming from a place where we feel this fear and this anxiety and we feel the need to control everything, we're getting in the way again of them eating and enjoying. Okay, so we're preparing these ideas, we're giving them the books, we're making these choices. So it's not like the student is the one choosing, okay, what do I feel like learning today? We are presenting these things for them and they are going to take in what they need, what they experience, what they got out of it. It might not be what we think they should get out of it, and sometimes it's not. And part of that is learning to release the control and learning to trust the process. So she said, let them learn from firsthand sources of information, really good books, the best going on the subject they're engaged upon. Let them get at the books themselves and do not let them be flooded with the warm diluent at the lips of the teacher. The teacher's business is to indicate, stimulate, direct, and constrain to the inquirement of knowledge, but by no means be the fountainhead and source of all knowledge. So when I first read this quote, I was like offended and relieved both at the same time. I was offended because I was like, wait a minute, I'm a really good teacher. Like I told you all, like I have a public school teaching background and I started a private school and a homeschool hybrid academy. I'm like, I'm good at teaching kids like my lessons. I'm not supposed to have this like warm diluent and be able to talk and oh my gosh, someone's writing on my screen. That's so weird. I don't know how this is happening. Anyway, I'm just going to roll with it because that's how life works. So I was offended because I was like, I was a history minor. I know this stuff. I can talk to my kids about it. But then I was also relieved. I don't have to know everything. I don't have to be the fountainhead of all knowledge. I can put them in touch with people who actually know more than I do on these subjects that I actually don't really like that much. Like, I'm really glad I don't have to teach certain subjects to my kids. And that is a relief. Okay. So that is way giving them these best books, giving them the ability to get at them for themselves without all of the lectures and things from us. And then the teacher who allows his scholars the freedom of the city of books is at liberty to be their guide, philosopher, and friend, and no longer the mere instrument of forcible intellectual feeding. Okay, not traditional, our modern industrialized school system spoon feeds kids. The teacher takes in the information, they figure out how to present it. Nowadays, it has to be in some like multi-technical presentation thing. Even when I was a teacher 20 years ago, I sometimes felt like I was like putting on a show to try to get everybody's attention. I had to take in all the information and then I had to figure out a way to present it to them. So it's like a mama bird, like digesting all the food and then throwing it back up into the little baby bird's mouth. This kind of industrialized view of education has the teacher doing all this heavy lifting and work and then regurgitating it or spoon feeding it to the pupils. We don't have to do that. And it's not, I love this, forcible. Often it doesn't matter. This is going in there. We're going to stuff this in there rather than a trusting, okay, you're going to take a bite of the sweet potatoes and you're going to get what you need from that. That nourishment will go in your body. I'm trusting this process. But the thing I love most about this, and I think this is the heart of a dental homeschool and the heart of this approach, is we can now be our child's guide, philosopher, and friend. And that's what I want to be with my kid. I want to walk this journey with them. Like I said yesterday, we're growing and learning just like our kids are growing and learning. And I want to be able to be the guide. Okay, yeah, here's where we're going. I want to be the friend and go, oh my goodness, can you believe that character just did that? I cannot believe that just happened. And the philosopher, right? There are times where I can share my opinions and share what I'm learning with my kids, but it's not, I know all the information. Now let me pour this into you. Listen to everything I'm saying. It comes at a different approach when it's from someone who's like next to you instead of in front of you, pulling you along. Okay, another way that we can partner with this divine helper is by respecting your child's narration. So if you are new to this approach, Charlotte Mason, I'm going to make it real simple, has living books, these are real books that tell a story. They could tell about historical events or about scientific concepts, but they tell it in a living narrative way. And then your child, either they read it themselves or you read it to them, and then they tell back. That's narration, the process of taking it in, figuring out what's important, what's not important, what order did it happen, and then they express it back. Our job as parents is to listen. And that is such a beautiful gift that we give our kids, for them to be able to express their thinking and to have an adult who actually listens to them. She wrote, a narration should be original as it comes from the child. That is, his own mind should have acted upon the matter it has received. And I saw somebody put, again, the Facebook group, that their kids, They had siblings, and the kids gave two totally different narrations, and they were like, oh my goodness, this is so cool. And it is, because I would sit down with all five of my kids and I would read something to them, and all five of them would have something different. They would express it different, or they would have something in the story that like stood out to them that was like different. Like my son, it was always like who fought who with what weapon, like whatever that thing was. Like my daughter, it was like always like the emotional side and how they felt about the thing. And but they were coming at it from their own perspective. And I love the fact that narration gives kids a voice. They're not just parroting back a summary. They're not just answering what they think is the right answer. Here's the question. Tell me what happened first in the story. Did he go here? Did he go here? Okay. What was the right answer? Okay. Everything the kid just thought was important went out of their head. All the imagery they had while you were reading, all the deep thinking that was taking place by asking questions. Now they're like, oh, what was that answer? And their brain immediately goes to try to find the information. And they don't get to express that. And that can go away like that. So we want to allow them the opportunity. Okay, what did you think was important? You tell me about it. And I gave the example of walking with my son. It doesn't have to be like everybody sit down and everybody tell me back what the story was about. It can be playful. It can be acting it out. It could be drawing. It could be voice recording. It could be my one daughter thought she had a YouTube channel the whole time she was like in elementary school. She didn't actually have one, but she would record her narrations and be like, hey guys, welcome to my channel. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Hello. And then she would give her little narration, and it worked. And she loved it. And so you can be playful with this, but respect your children in that. And that doesn't mean that you never correct something. If there was something that was like, they're talking about King David doing whatever, but it was really King Solomon, but you don't interrupt. You listen, and then afterward, in a gentle way, just go, yeah, wasn't that neat how King David did da, 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 da? And trust that they are taking the information. And I've even had, this doesn't happen anymore. My kids were little, stuff like this would happen, where they would give a narration and one or two things was slightly off from what the story was. And I'm just like, oh, okay, thanks for sharing. I appreciate that. That was really interesting how thought whatever about the thing. And I don't correct them. I'm pointing out what I thought was interesting. And then like several days later, they're like, Mom, I think the other day I told you that it was blah, 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 but it was actually da, da, da. Their mind needed that time to process. And the thing came out and I didn't have to do it. Again, it's stepping back and allowing your children to have that process. Like I told you guys yesterday, it's not always perfect the first time. Learning is messy and we learn through trial and error. So respect their narration. Give up the need to control based on fear. And I talked about this yesterday, but I'm going to talk about it again here because it's so important. If we want to allow the divine helper to help us, we have to realize that we can't control everything. And we have to trust, because faith, oh, the quote from yesterday, right? Education is like faith, the evidence of things unseen. And when we're coming from fear, that's not from God. And so we need to be honest and be like, I am afraid about this. I never thought about it before, but I actually am afraid. What if next week my kids did have to go back to school or whatever? Like, what would happen? I'm afraid. And be honest about that. But don't let those fears and worries control the actions and control the way that you're showing up for your kids. Because again, no one learns in a high pressure environment. When we are consumed with fear and worry, our kids feel that. But here's the other thing, it also limits us. And research has shown this. When we are under a lot of pressure and anxiety, our brains don't think as well. Not just our kids don't learn as well, we can't think as well. And so it's harder for us to come up with like creative solutions or to be empathetic towards our kids or to have like a compassionate response, because that fear and that anxiety has taken over, like literally taken over our brains, and it makes it harder. So when we can release that control, we actually oftentimes can think of things that could be a solution to a problem that we've had. Education happens not because we make it happen, but because we trust that ideas once planted will grow. I am trusting that I am planting seeds. Charlotte Mason said, a morning in which a child has not received a new idea is a morning wasted. I trust that these seeds, these ideas that I'm planting are going to grow. And it is not all up to me to make it happen. Thank goodness. That is a relief, and we should feel that. So many of us are carrying the weight and the pressure of our kids are only going to learn if we make it happen and we make them learn. And we need to learn that education happens when we trust. All right, be open to receiving help. Oh, did I just say that? Yes, I did. Okay. If you want to be open to having the divine helper help you, you have to be willing to receive the help. Oh, that's hard to do, isn't it? All right, here are some signs that you might be taking on too much. You might be feeling overwhelmed constantly. We all feel overwhelmed at times, but if that is the predominant feeling, you might be taking on too much. Physical symptoms of stress, this could be headaches, stomach aches, back aches, all the aches. You feel irritable and resentful, and again, we all feel that at times, but if this is your predominant emotion, you might be taking on too much. You're not taking care of yourself. You might have let like your nutrition go or your exercise go or just yourself go, and you're not taking care of yourself. You might be taking on too much. You never have time for what is most important to you. The things that light you up, your hobbies, your interests. Oh, I put that twice because it's that important. That's why I put it twice. Okay, but here's what I want you to get is that you are not alone. You are not alone. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second because I want to talk to you about this. Even if you feel like you are. And God has the divine helper ready to help you, but he also has people in your life to help you and things in your life to help you. And oftentimes we aren't open to receiving the help. So those blessings are there and they're waiting for us, and we shut the door to them and we're like, no, I can do it. I can do it myself. I don't need any help. I've got this. And we think that if we can do it ourselves and that we somehow have it all together, or it looks like we have it all together, or we're just convincing ourselves we have it all together, that it will make us more valuable. And I've been thinking about this, and honestly, I think a lot of that has to do with this kind of school system that a lot of us went through, where you get 100% on the test, you get a smelly sticker, or you get this grade. And when you get this grade, then you can go to the college and then you can get the good job. And you can, this mentality of all the time of we have to do it ourselves and we have to earn it. And that's not true when it comes to homeschooling our kids. Doing it yourself doesn't make you any more valuable. You are worthy of help just because you are. And God wants to help you and he wants to give you these blessings. Sometimes we just have to open our eyes to see them because we've shut the door and be like, I'm fine. I don't need this. And one of the things I've had to learn is asking for help is not a weakness. Asking for help actually takes a tremendous amount of strength. When you ask people for help, you're the one being vulnerable. And girls, let me tell you, I hate being vulnerable. I've gotten a lot better at it, but there are years I'm like, I am fine. I am not being vulnerable. I do not need anything from anybody. Vulnerability is what builds relationships. Vulnerability is what builds intimacy. And so if I can tell someone, I need your help, yeah, it feels very vulnerable, but that takes a tremendous amount of strength to admit. And it builds connection when I have this other person helping me. And so by me going, I'm fine, I can do it all by myself, it isolates us. And then we wonder, why is nobody helping me? I'm so overwhelmed. People, come on, somebody give me some help here. Another thing I had to learn is by not accepting help from other people when they offer it. So it's one thing to ask for it, right? It's another thing if that help is being offered and I don't accept it. Because I used to be like, oh no, I'm okay. Or, oh, I don't want to put you out. I know you have a lot going on. It's actually robbing the other person of the joy that they would get from helping me. And that was huge because I thought, oh, I'm helping them by not accepting this because they have so much going on. And so they probably don't really want to do it. They're probably just saying it. And so if I just tell them like it's okay, they're gonna be like, oh, thank goodness. But I realized no, like they actually want to do this. There's actually something that they are going to get. They're going to get that good feeling from helping a friend. And I'm saying no. And I'm robbing them of that blessing that they're going to get from helping. And that was eye-opening for me. So it wasn't like, this is a selfless thing. I'm the smarter and I can do it all by myself. No. Again, it builds that connection. It builds that intimacy when we receive from other people. How are you being externally supported in your homeschool? So this could be with maybe your kids take a class at a co-op. Maybe you have a friend that you share some homeschooling responsibilities with. Maybe use a certain curriculum that offers support, like whatever it is. How are you externally supported in your homeschool? So live math classes, amazing. Respite worker, that's fantastic. See, this is really hard to answer. I have, yep, me too, moral support. Yes, that's great. I love that. Christiane, the support can be people encouraging you. Encouragement is tremendous support. That's huge. And some people don't have that. They don't have family or friends or spouses who support them. So if you do, put that down. That is huge. Absolutely. A gentle feast. Oh, I love that. Your church, fantastic. An unexpected homeschool group of like-minded moms you found your village. That's fantastic. And it could just be like an actual book or resource that you have. Like it doesn't always have to be externally doesn't mean people. Online, yep, those are all things, right? That's amazing. I love this. All right, and then I want you to think of ways that you are currently internally supported in your homeschool. So this is stuff coming from you. What gifts, talents, interests, quirks did God gift you with that supports your homeschool? Maybe you are really good at baking, and so your kids have delicious food to eat. Maybe you are really creative and you're willing to like just, let's just go do a little dance party before we start this. Maybe you are really good at organizing, yes, organizing your books, organizing your schedule. Maybe you're really good at, you love to read. I love that. Love to read aloud to your kids. Love going on adventures, cooking, learning crafts. I'm really animated during read alouds. I love that. My kids always, I try to use audiobooks with them and they're like, Mom, your voice is so much better. And I'm like, but my voice hurts. That narrator is a professional actor who's getting paid a lot of money to make that audiobook. Surely they're better than me. And the kids are like, no, I love your voice. So that's great. I love that. Passionate about literature, like your interest, right? God made me like super fascinated with history. I love it. I love musical theater. That's the way I'm internally supported in my homeschool. I can take my kids to go see Hamilton and it's history, right? So all of these things count. And so often we neglect the gifts that are already right here. Oh, that doesn't count. Oh, but I wish I could do blah, blah, blah. Or I wish I could be like that mom on Instagram. You love being outside. That is fantastic. Go out with them. Don't negate the gifts that God has already given you. Even, I would say, learn to make those strengths even stronger. I love your children. I love that. You have a positive attitude. Fantastic. I think we could all put, right? I'm totally supported why I love my children well, most of the time. So when you look over this list, how do you feel? Hopeful. I love that. more empowered and at peace, happy tears. Oh, Kelly, encouraged. Maybe I'm not doing a terrible job. Absolutely, you're not. Excited. Surprised there actually are resources. I know, right? The live enemy of you all alone and you got to carry this whole burden all by yourself. It's just not true. There are always infinite number of ways we can be supported. But it first takes looking at where we're currently supported and having gratitude for that. I love that. Maybe doing better. Of course you are, Grace. All right, here's some things you can say to yourself instead. So I had to learn to take that thought. I'm all alone. I got to do this all by myself. Pull up your bootstraps, Julie, like all these really unhealthy thoughts. And this is what I say to myself all the time. Some version of things like these. I can't wait to see how God is going to work this one out. I say that all the time. When things look really dark and scary, or even like when we're stuck in a huge traffic jam for 2 hours, once with my kids, they hear me say this all the time. I can't wait to see how God is going to work this out. And again, amazing things happen. I also have learned to ask who or what can support me. So instead of, I got to figure it out, who or what could support me in this? And sometimes it just takes sitting on it for a while. But oftentimes I'll pray or I'll journal, okay, God, like I need an answer. I'm really worried. I don't know what to do about blah, blah, blah. I trust that you're going to provide support in your divine timing, in your divine way. And I can't tell you how many times, like the next day, I'll be listening to something, or I'll read a book, or a friend will call, and that exact answer will come through that conversation or through that thing I'm listening to. Again, you're opening yourself up to get the answers that you need. Does this need to get done by me? Oftentimes, the answer to that is nope. Does this need to get done by me, or does this need to get done by me right now? No, nobody's going to die if I don't do this thing right this second. And I am worthy of receiving help. Again, doing it on your own does not get you a scratch and sniff sticker anymore. You don't have to do it on your own. You are worthy of receiving help. The goodness of God is always available. That's the verse I clung to through all the things that have happened. I will see the goodness of God in the land of the living. And so even in really dark circumstances, I'm like, okay, God, where's the goodness? I'm looking for it. I'm going to find it. I know you're here. I trust that this goodness is always available. And then I love this question. What if this was fun and easy? And like that huge traffic jam that we were stuck in for 2 hours, I was like, what if this was fun and easy? And so my kids and I, we got out in the middle of the road with all these semis and stuff and started doing TikTok dances. And we had the best time. We were literally stuck on the highway for 2 hours. If we focus on what's wrong, if we focus on the negative, we don't allow ourselves to open up to the divine help of maybe this could be easier than it actually is. We put so much pressure on ourselves, and it's in that stressed out state that we can't think clearly enough to find out how could this be fun, like easy, and have the creative to hear the still small whisper of God. I don't think the helper is screaming at us, do that. This will fix all the problems in your homeschool. It's these gentle whispers and nudging of the spirit on a regular basis of, what if I didn't have to carry this all on my own anymore? What would that look like? Think about how different you would show up if you came from that place of peace and trust on a regular basis. And how different you showing up differently would then change the atmosphere of your homeschool. All right, so we're going to do a little bit in our last couple minutes here. We're going to do some journaling. So I'm just going to put all the questions up here. There's only 3, but I want you to take some time and just sit with them. What part of your homeschool have you been trying to control out of fear? What would it look like to trust more and strive less? And then the last question, how can you remind yourself that you are infinitely supported? All right, so take some time. I don't have my other computer, or I'd play some, oh, I do. I'll play some little music. But take some time and think about these questions. What would it look like if you could do less? If you could stop striving? How can you remind yourself that you are infinitely supported? I can trust that the Holy Spirit is going to guide and lead them through that. And in fact, my children find things sometimes that I didn't even think of, that I'm like, oh, wow, that's a really good point. Never thought about that. And so it's not all on my shoulders, is what I'm trying to say. It doesn't mean that we are not responsible, because we are 100% responsible for showing up, for cultivating these habits, and giving our children these living, beautiful ideas and guiding them, right? But at the end of the day, our children are people, right? And God does give them free will, I believe. And I can be doing these things and being consistent and providing this beautiful education. But at the end of the day, like, they get to make their own choices. And sometimes that's messy. And sometimes having adult children, like, they might choose things I don't really like. And I'm like, oh, again, and it's trusting that process. As they get older, trust me, the more you try to control, the more they try to resist. And not doesn't mean like it's free to do whatever you want. No, Charlotte Mason was very clear. It's not just liberty, okay? It's putting our children on the right path, in the right soil, in the right nurturing environment, and then trust that they're going to grow.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Let's wrap up with some key takeaways. Number 1, you're not homeschooling alone, really. Charlotte Mason reminds us that every subject, yes, even grammar, is under the realm of the divine teacher. When we try to take full control, flooding our kids with facts, over planning, or cramming in too much, we may actually be resisting that sacred cooperation. What would it look like to homeschool in trust instead of fear? Number 2, less stuffing, more nourishing. Facts are not food for the soul. Ideas are. Instead of overwhelming your kids with information, focus on offering a rich feast of living books, beauty, and experiences. Trust that the ideas that matter will stick and the rest will fall away. Number 3, make room for margin and imagination. Overscheduling, even in a homeschool setting, can squeeze out all the solitude and independence children need to grow. Imagination thrives in quiet. Don't underestimate the spiritual and developmental power of white space in your day. Number 4, you are a guide, philosopher, and friend, not a lecturer. Your role isn't to be the fountainhead of all knowledge, but the one who gently sets the feast and lets the child partake. Narration allows them to process, express, and own what they've learned. Respect their efforts, even when it's messy or incomplete, and watch them come alive. And number 5, you are worthy of help. Accepting help, whether divine or practical, isn't weakness, it's strength. God is offering you support, and He's placed people, tools, and talents in your life to assist you. Ask yourself, who or what could support me in this? And what would change if I truly believed I didn't have to do it all alone? Thanks for listening to today's episode. I hope that it was a help. Hey there, Julie Ross here. I just wanted to say thank you for listening to today's episode. If you like this show, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a positive review in iTunes. This really does help people learn about the podcast. And each month I will pick a winner to receive a free gift. Don't forget to check out all the free resources we created for you at thefeastlife.me. Thank you.